Hi guys. Okay, so today I am going to talk you through some things about one of my favorite genres in literature, and that is the folktale genre. I even have my Mickey ears on because Disney retells a lot of folktales. So today is just going to kind of be like our general overview. We're going to learn a bit about folktales, and in some of our upcoming lessons, we're going to be diving a little bit deeper into different types of folktales and reading some different ones. So it's going to be really exciting. So what is a folktale? So folktales were created and shared through oral tradition. So that means they were passed down verbally from generation to generation of people. So that means you sat down and you told the stories just from memory, what you remembered. So they kind of changed a bit over time. I know my grandma used to love telling me folktales in the same way. Over time, though, over the hundreds and hundreds of years that these stories were passed around, many of the tales were written down to preserve them and to keep the stories. Because think about it like a game of telephone. Does it ever sound the same at the end as it did at the beginning? So they were made up to explain the wonders of the world. If we didn't really understand something scientifically hundreds of years ago, sometimes these stories could fill that in for us. Or they were made to teach morals and lessons. Sometimes they were told by parents to scare their kids into doing the right thing. So, most folktales have one or more of the following traits. So there's a big list here, and we're going to be working our way slowly through this list over our upcoming lessons. They have strong characters, simple settings. Many times you might just hear in a forest a long time ago, in a castle. They don't really go into huge detail about the settings. Magic or fantasy, a problem that gets solved. The characters have to prove themselves some way. There's some sort of challenge they have to overcome. Many times we see that idea of good versus evil. Cultural clues. So there's a lot of similar stories that are told in different countries and cultures around the world, like Cinderella and Rough-Faced Girl. And you can tell a lot about the culture by what comes through in the story. There's a message, a lesson, or the explanation. So the idea of what we just talked about, that they're trying to teach a lesson or explain something that's happening in nature. Many times you'll see something about the rule of 3 or the rule of 7. 7 little dwarves, 3 billy goats gruff, and repeated phrases. And many times those phrases that come up again or again are repeated 3 times as well, kind of linking together some of those. There are several different types of folktales. I'm going to take you on a quick walk through some of them. And as we go deeper into this unit, we're going to be learning more about these different types of folktales. So there's mythology, trickster tales, fables, porcoy, tall tales, and my personal favorite that my head is blocking right now, fairy tale. So mythology. Myths are used to explain how something in nature happens, and they teach a lesson using gods and goddesses. You might be familiar with some characters, usually from Greek or Roman mythology, but there were several others as well. Tall tales. Think about Paul Bunyan. Exaggerated details about everyday people who have superhuman traits. So it's supposed to kind of be a typical person, but maybe they're really, really tall or really, really strong. Trickster tales. One character is a clever trickster that causes problems for others. Porcoy tales. So these were used to explain why something is the way it is or how something in nature came to be. If you've ever read Why Mosquitoes Buzz in People's Ears, or sometimes they talked about where the sun went at night, tales like that. And fables are one of my favorite. The main characters are animals with human characteristics. There is a moral to be learned. So they're animals that have those human traits. They're alive, they're personified. Okay, they can talk, they can walk. Think about the 3 little pigs. I know most of you know that story. That's a great example of a fable. Fairy tales. My absolute favorite. And those are those fantasy stories involving royalty and sometimes animals as well in fairy tales. So we're going to be diving deeper into some of these, especially fairy tales and fables, as we move forward in our work. But that's just kind of your first taste or overview of the different traits of, or different types of a folktale.